I'm Vinnie Politan, the subject of my investigation, the brutal murders of Keith, Jennifer, Sophia, and Jesse Caneiro. An entire family wiped out. The accused is Paul Caneiro, Keith's brother, who prosecutors say was stealing money from his brother before he killed him and his family. Here's the story. It's an accusation as old as Cain and Abel. A brother fueled by jealousy and resentment murders his own flesh and blood. Prosecutors have accused Paul Caneiro of killing his more successful younger brother Keith and his entire family. They say that in April of 2018, Paul drove to his brother's house where he murdered Keith, then killed his wife, then stabbed and killed his children before he set the house on fire. Investigators say the crimes were deliberate, methodical, and fueled by resentment and a conflict between the brothers about money. Authorities allege Paul attempted to destroy the evidence by igniting his brother's mansion. Then they claim he set his own home on fire to throw off the investigation and hide his crimes. Paul was arrested within days, and prosecutors have laid out a chilling narrative of jealousy, rage, and betrayal, one that transformed a family dispute into one of New Jersey's most horrifying mass murders. This story, this case, this investigation, it took a while to gather all the evidence. There's a lot of layers to this, right? You've got two different scenes where there are fires taking place. You've got 4 murders. You've got 2 different murder weapons. And then you start diving into the relationship between these brothers. There's a whole bunch that goes along with that as well. Let's get to some of the video evidence tonight. And in this hour, we're going to take a look at a lot of videos and a lot of images. I'm about to show you a first image. And what you have to remember about this story is that the allegations by prosecutors are that Paul Caneiro, in the middle of the night, goes from his house, drives about 20 minutes over to his brother's house, and cuts the power to his brother's house and the generator, right? His brother lives in this mansion, very remote, but is able to turn everything off and just shut down all the power in Keith Caneiro's home. They allege, however, before the power is cut, someone is captured by a surveillance camera inside of Keith Caneiro's garage. Take a look at this image. Okay, the camera's inside the garage. You're looking out. You see the garage door. Now, the garage door has frosted glass. Kind of fancy, but frosted glass. So you don't get a super clear image of what's on the other side. But if you look at the middle window on the right side, on the screen right, you see like this white image and a darker image on top of it. That is who prosecutors say is someone. Now, we've enhanced this image. As you take a look at it, you brighten it up a little bit. Does that white part look like an arm? Does the dark part look like maybe some hair on a head? Is it shaped like a body? If you look in that bottom frame of the frosted glass, does that look like the continuation of whatever shirt is being worn and then some darker pants below as we zoom in? Take a look at that. This is an important piece of physical evidence because Paul Caneiro, once the power goes, the cameras are shut down. So this is like the last moment just before the power goes off. What is this image showing? Let me put it side by side with Paul Caneiro. And this is going to be the big question, right? Is the man on the right the same as the image you see on the left-hand side of your screen? Now, to me, it seems clear that there is someone creeping around moments before the power goes out. Now, let me show you from the other side of the garage. Obviously, this picture taken in daytime, you see the crime scene tape, but there you can see the frosted glass, and you can see it's not really a large area, but going past it, you may not know that you're being captured by surveillance cameras. You might not know that. As a matter of fact, you may not even think that. I want you to take a listen to the detective here, Richard Zarillo, lead detective on the case. He has subsequently retired, answering questions about these images.
There were cameras located inside of that garage, right?
Yes.
Because those cameras at around 2:36 in the morning on November 20th record what appears to be a human figure walking by that garage door, right?
I believe so, yes.
You recognize that?
From the inside of the garage at 15 Willowbrook.
Okay. Was this photo significant in the investigation?
Yes.
Okay, well, let me clarify that. Did it capture something that was significant?
It captured what we believe was a person outside the residence prior to the incident occurring.
And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. Was Paul Caneiro caught on video at Keith's house? Let's bring in our guest. Joining me, host of the 13th Juror podcast and Crime Junkie Jury on YouTube, Brandy Churchwell is with us, along with trial attorney Matthew Barhoma. Great to see you both tonight. All right, Brandy, your first reaction to this image that is captured moments before the power is cut to the home. Someone cut the power to your audio. Are you on mute, Brandy? Can you check? Okay, hold on, Brandy. We're going to get your power back on. Let's go to Matthew Barhoma. Matthew, what is your reaction to that video, that piece of evidence, that image, moments before the power going out?
You know, Vinny, I think it's relevant. Okay, is it him? Is it a smoking gun? No. I think what prosecutors are going to have to do in this case is they're going to have to bring that point, that image home in closing arguments. They're going to have to put it in the timeline of him going to his house, him showing up at Keith's house, the figure, why it's him, why we think it's his hands, right? But it alone, it's so circumstantial, it's so remote. I mean, I wonder how much pre-trial litigation happened over this image, because as a defense attorney, I would try to foreclose it from coming in altogether.
Brandy Churchwell, your thoughts about the image on the other side of the frosted glass?
I think that this was kind of a wow moment because, yes, it is very, it's foggy, you can't see it, but there is an outline. And I think that the timeline is a big part of this too, because we have other video surveillance of him at different times, right? We have the video of him in his own garage. We have, cameras that have caught him what they believe is him allegedly pulling out of the driveway, and you see headlights. Everything kind of comes down to that. And here this figure is at this house at 2:36 a.m. I think that it is, the camera doesn't identify the person, but I think that the timeline might.
Yeah, both the timeline's so important. Every time we cover a story, a case, whether it's solved or unsolved, we always try to put together a timeline. Obviously, investigators do the same thing. So, Matthew, looking at this image, should investigators have done more? Should they have tried to get an expert or figure out a way to determine the height of the figure on the other side of the frosted glass?
Listen, I got to give it to the prosecution. They've done a good job investigating this case and presenting it. Sometimes, though, in watching this trial, I wish they bring the point home more. There are some questions that I always feel left out. There's always just a little piece of the pie. Even though they're presenting it, I feel like they really could bring it across. And as a jury member, as a layperson, I'm sure you're craving that kind of content, even if it's subconscious. Should they have brought in an expert? I don't know. I mean, the problem is it's so murky that an expert might just muddy the water. Maybe leaving it as is, drawing out inferences. You got to close it in closing arguments. The timeline is imperative. I think could do it.
Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Brandy Churchwell, if he's an innocent man, and I don't know, they pointed the finger at the brother. I don't know if the brothers are the same height or different heights. If he's factually innocent, I could see perhaps the defense, they're allowed to investigate cases also, maybe trying to figure out the height of the figure on the other side there. But if he and his brother are the same height, it wouldn't do anyone any good.
Yeah, and I think, some of the best information that we get from some trials comes from defense investigators. So I think that it could absolutely be, something that they could look into. And it is one of those things where certain parts of it could give us more information that could point towards him, but there are certain things like height that could potentially point away from him if it doesn't add up to him. But it doesn't look good, though.
No. The timeline, if you, and we're going to go through many aspects of what you're talking about in this hour. Matthew, let me ask you about jurors, though. Do jurors say, hey, you could have done more here? You could have done more, prosecutors, and the burden's on you. Do you think they'll hold them to that and perhaps hold that against them?
In some cases, maybe. I don't see them doing that in this one. Here's the thing. Jurors, they're sophisticated. They're smart. They can come to their own judgments. They're not exactly legal experts. They're lay, right? Sometimes you got to bring the point all the way through. You got to really bring it to fruition, right? I think closing arguments for the prosecution on this point is going to be very important for that reason. But do I see the jury punishing them on this? I don't know. So far, I don't think so, but we haven't seen the other side of the coin.
Brandy, it's like the Delphi case. Every time we have a video, it's just blurry enough that you cannot exactly tell who it is, right? Why does it always work out that way?
Yeah, I know. I wish that we could have make it mandatory law to have high-res cameras on every corner in every home. But I think that would help. But I agree. Jurors, the whole point behind my podcast is jurors looking at information and putting it together. And I have faith in jurors. I don't think that they'll punish them for this. I think that that's something that it will be another piece of the puzzle. But I think, again, I know we keep talking about the timeline, but I think that's such a huge part of it. So I think that this is just one foggy glass piece of a bigger timeline puzzle. And
we're talking about jurors. These are jurors from New Jersey, my home state, where I practiced. So I know these jurors are really smart, like the smartest. Okay, Brandy, Matthew staying with us. Coming up next, take a look at this image. Is there an innocent explanation for this image at 128? Paul Caneiro in his garage near his DVR. Did an affair lead to double murder?
The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brandon Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Prosecutors allege the defendant planned to run away with the family's au pair. So he killed his wife and another man.
He was saying, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her.
It's a case of sex, lies, and deadly deception.
The Au Pair Affair murder trial. Live coverage weekday mornings on Court TV.
What this case is not is some made-for-TV movie with plot twists and shocking revelations and surprise endings. Make absolutely no mistake, this is a case about the evidence and where that evidence led and who that evidence led to.
Prosecutors laying out their case against Paul Caneiro for the murder of his brother and his entire brother's family, then setting the mansion on fire, also setting his own home on fire. There's the fire at his house, and that's the first fire that there's a response to. And when firefighters, emergency responders, police show up, wearing body cameras and speaking with Paul Caneiro. I want you to take a listen to this back and forth at the scene of the fire at Paul Caneiro's home.
How you doing, sir? It's your house? Yes. Where is all the DVD stuff for the cameras and everything in the house?
It's in the garage.
It's in the garage?
Yeah.
Where in the garage at?
Walk in the garage and it's all the way up top to the left.
Top to the left? Do you have them running right now?
I've been having problems with stuff in the garage.
You've been having problems with stuff in the garage?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to take it over actually with one of the companies.
Okay. All right.
He's talking about problems with stuff in his garage. Why is he talking about this? What's the significance of that? Well, according to prosecutors, it's very, very significant because in the garage is the control to the DVR for his home surveillance system. And at 1:28, I want you to take a look at what happens on camera at 1:28. He's recorded inside that circle. That is Paul Caneiro. Now, the timestamp is 1 hour ahead, but this is at 1:28. Let's take a look now at the video from his own surveillance system. He's fiddling around with something. Oh, and then it's turned off. He's in the garage on camera, fiddling with something in the garage, which is where the home base is for his DVR surveillance system, and then all of a sudden the video goes to black. All right, that brings us to the next question in our investigation, and it's about what you just saw. Is there an innocent explanation for this? Right? The shutting off of his home surveillance video right at the time that he's in the garage fiddling with something on camera. Still with me, podcaster Brandy Churchwell and attorney Matthew Barhoma. Matthew, I'll start with you. Okay, is there an innocent explanation for this?
You know, this is a really bad piece of evidence, okay? One, it's time-stamped. We got you right on camera. It clearly turns off right when you touch it. There's an email that was also sent to him after that confirming, hey, this was the last time it was turned off. It must have been disconnected or something of that sort. So it's a really bad piece of evidence because it does lay the timeline. It does help put him on a timeline of how this went about. Is it innocent? I mean, look, it doesn't prove murder. It doesn't prove arson. It doesn't prove any of it, but it does go towards motive. It does go towards intent. And I think the jury would watch closely on this one.
Yeah, Brandy, I'm trying to think of the last time at 1:30 in the morning I was fiddling around in my garage. I can't think of any time that I've been there. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I know the defense wants an innocent explanation for this because they want reasonable doubt, right? But reasonable doubt has to be reasonable. I think that with this, it's kind of, you could potentially say ordinary behavior, but extraordinary hour. People do routine things all the time on camera, right? But what makes this moment stand out is when it happens. This is deep in the overnight hours, right before the system goes dark. And then, you know, cameras don't usually fail at narrative perfect moments. The systems can glitch or whatever, yes, but we see him reaching up, and the juries are allowed to consider how unlikely that would be for it to just be something innocent when we see him right there. And this is right at the time when, you know, right after this is when everything else happens. So having an innocent explanation for him potentially being on camera right there, that does not account for everything that happens immediately after. It might explain his presence, but it doesn't explain him leaving and the timing and the travel and everything else that unfolded right after that.
Yeah, and it makes him, he's awake at 1:30, right? People can be awake at 1:30, but like, the timing here is so significant, Matthew, that, okay, all of a sudden now the defense is going to have to argue coincidence, right? I mean, that's the only explanation. It's a coincidence. He happened to be in the garage and then the thing went down, and it just happened to be around the time that someone, you know, an hour or two later went over to his brother's house and is walking past the garage, cutting the power. It's just a coincidence.
Yeah, and you know, there's a phrase, Vinny, if you're explaining, you're losing, right? And that's the thing. This piece of evidence puts him in a box because he's got to explain it now, right? Another issue is that it proves that the car was inside the garage at 1:30, right, at approximately 1:30. And then it moves out, and there you go, having to explain that, right? Also, it lays a timeline of when he gets over to the other house over in New Jersey. So, you know, it's It's not a good piece of evidence because of that. And the issue with it is it's discernible. Like, as a jury member, I would see his face there. Like, I would think about that. And I think that does something for the prosecution. It really, this is a great stepping stone, I think, for the prosecution.
Yeah. Brandy, I think Matthew makes a great point. This is the kind of evidence that I think jurors love, because jurors want to be able to think and put things together. Like, yeah, you can hand them here's a videotape of the murder, right? They don't have that. But you invite the jury to, hey, you know, let's put 2 and 2 together here. And I think this is the kind of stuff they can sink their teeth into.
Oh, yeah. And you can count certain things as coincidence, but coincidences don't usually stack. You know, a jury can accept 1 or 2 coincidences, but this is kind of like, you know, this is accepting, in order to accept that this is just a coincidence, you would have to accept that, you know, there are so many all at once. You know, it just doesn't, it doesn't work.
Matthew?
This fits seamlessly in an uninterrupted sequence of events. So it kind of takes away the coincidence argument.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We are out of time. Thank you, Brandy Churchwell, Matthew Barhoma. Great to have you on the program. We've got more still to come. Was Paul Caneiro's Porsche caught on video? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the murders of Keith Caneiro, his wife, and his children, executed inside their sprawling New Jersey mansion, which was also set on fire. A crime scene described as the worst in the history of this prosecutor's office. In fact, it's brought seasoned investigators to the point of choking up on the witness stand. Here's the story. They were best friends and brothers until they weren't. What began as a strained sibling relationship ended in catastrophic violence, prosecutors allege. Paul Caneiro is accused of traveling to his brother Keith's home, shooting him, murdering his wife Jennifer and their 2 children before setting the mansion on fire. Investigators say the fire was meant to erase the crime, but instead revealed it. Firefighters discovered the family inside, and medical examiners later determined the victims were dead before the flames consumed the house. Authorities point to a long history of tension, financial disputes, and allegations of theft. Prosecutors allege Caneiro acted alone, carefully planning the attacks in advance. This case shocked the Colts Neck, New Jersey community and stunned the nation, raising disturbing questions about how money issues inside of a family can allegedly escalate into unthinkable violence. So this hour, we're focusing in on a lot of the video evidence that prosecutors are putting in front of this jury. And all of it is putting together their timeline of events, trying to track and piece together Paul Caneiro's movements. Because remember, Paul Caneiro lives in one town. His brother lives about 20 minutes away in another town in New Jersey. So right now, I want you to take a look at Paul Caneiro's white Porsche. Important part of this case. This is the car. It's, you know, kind of that small SUV, large sedan, however you want to term it. It is white. And prosecutors are alleging this is the vehicle that Paul Caneiro drove from his house in Ocean Township to his brother's house in Colts Neck and back. And they say they can prove it through a timeline built through surveillance video. So I want you to take a look at this map. You'll see 3 circles here. The circle in the yellow, that's Paul Caneiro's home in Ocean Township. You go to the end of the block, you see 2 homes circled in red. Those homes have surveillance cameras. Those cameras captured images in those early morning hours, and you're going to see the video in a moment, but these are the first two cameras that prosecutors say capture Paul Caneiro going to Keith's house and then returning a couple hours later. I've got another map for you. This is a map, again, with 3 circles. The yellow circle is Keith Caneiro's home, that mansion in Colts Neck. The 2 circles in red, 2 more homes with surveillance cameras. Again, these are the cameras that prosecutors say show Paul Caneiro's white Porsche arriving and then leaving. Arriving at 2:07, or leaving at 2:07, going to Keith's, then returning at 3:48 in the morning. So I've got 2 videos to show you. Let me show you the first one. This is video of the Porsche going to Keith's house. It's nighttime, so you see headlights. This image a little bit brighter as the car goes by. That seems to be one of the clearer photos there. You can kind of see when it brightens for a moment. You get an outline, the curvature of the car, the spacing of the headlights. Again, if it was daytime, it would be much clearer, but it's not. It's nighttime. No other cars on the road, by the way. You notice that? Not a ton of cars. And they're, again, driving by. This is the trip beginning at 2:07, going to Keith's, according to prosecutors. Now we've got the next video. This is Paul's Porsche at 3:48 on the alleged return trip. Same cameras, right? But now opposite direction. And again, all of this becomes the foundation for the prosecution's timeline. You piece this together with some of the other images that we've been showing you tonight of Paul Caneiro in his own garage, an image going past Keith Caneiro's garage. And this is probably the most well-lit area right here, as you can capture a look at the car to see if it looks like that white Porsche. It took a long time for investigators to track down all this video and put it all together to try to create this timeline for the jury. I want you to take a listen to the detective explaining the video and how they believe they're able to identify Paul Caneiro's white Porsche.
Top photograph, which is a still photograph taken from the surveillance footage that we just viewed, dated 11/20/2018 at 2:07:50 a.m., which depicts the vehicle that we discussed earlier. The bottom photograph is a photograph of a Porsche Macan, a white Porsche Macan that belongs to Paul Caneiro, that was taken from his home in 27 Tilton, and it's stored in our storage facility at the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office.
Okay, so that bottom photo was taken in a facility belonging to the County of Monmouth?
Correct.
Can I have slide 174, please? Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What's that again?
So the top photograph is a still photograph from the surveillance footage that we just viewed. It's stamped 11/20/2018 at 4:08:28 a.m. And the bottom photograph is depicts the passenger side of the same Porsche Macan that was taken from 27 Tilton Drive, which belonged to Paul Caneiro.
This is their evidence. It's like this in so many of the cases where the evidence is there, but it's not crystal clear. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Was Paul Caneiro's Porsche caught on video? Right? We're all in the same seats as this jury who has to make this determination. Joining me, reporter for NJ Advance Media. He's been reporting on the story for NJ.com and has been inside the courtroom. Kevin Shea is with us. Kevin, great to see you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. What are your thoughts about this video? I mean, I cover so many trials, and these cases inevitably have that surveillance video that's just blurry enough, right? Where you can kind of make it out. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, prosecutors definitely think this was, Paul Caneiro headed to his brother's house. So I was in the court watching the videos being played, and, you know, it's dark. You see a lot of headlights, you see a lot of movement, but like you said, it's not very clear. It's not crystal clear that this is his car. You know, I think the defense pounced on it pretty quickly when they said, you can't see who's in it, you can't see who's driving, you can't see if there's other people in it. So I actually thought that was pretty effective.
Yeah, one thing though that, and I'm a former prosecutor and prosecuted in New Jersey years ago, I would point out that, and try to get this jury to understand, is it the same car going as returning, right? Going in the two directions. Was that clear in the courtroom that it was at a minimum, the same car is seen at 2:07 going in one direction that's coming back in the other direction at 3:48?
Well, I mean, it was clear in the way the prosecutors presented it that it matches the timeline, the shape of the car, the direction. You know, that all matches. It matches their theory. It matches their timeline. Again, you know, how many Porsches are on the road? You bring up a good point. There were no other vehicles on the road, at least in the video that they played. There weren't, you know, cars following it or illuminating it in other ways. This was the only car in those pieces of footage. So, you know, it definitely seems compelling on its face. But like I said, I thought the defense pretty quickly was able to, you know, put some doubt on that. You know, is this even the car? Is it his car? Nobody could say this is actually his car.
Yeah, that's.
It certainly looks like it in points.
Right.
They did talk about those.
It's not inconsistent with it, but you don't see it well. Like in this video, I think is where we see it the clearest, that it appears to be a light colored car, but I couldn't tell you 100% that it's white versus like baby blue or silver, but it does appear to, at a minimum, to be light colored, and the shape is significant too, because that Porsche has a very distinct shape.
Yeah, they talked about that, you know, that black stripe on the bottom, or that molding, whatever it is, and, you know, the shape of the headlights. So prosecutors and detectives definitely think it's the car. And they used the term light colored. You know, they didn't say white, they said light.
Let's bring in another guest we have with us. Trial attorney Crystal Pettiford is with us. Great to have you, Crystal. So what are your thoughts here? Because this is a big deal. This is, the jury, I think, has to be comfortable in believing that that's Paul Caneiro's car. What are your thoughts?
It certainly looks like it could be, but I don't think the video is definitive enough. It's not clear enough to see exactly what type of car that is, or even the color. I guess with everything else combined, the inference can be made that it is his vehicle, but that in and of itself doesn't show it clear enough to say definitively.
I'm wondering and maybe Kevin, you could chime in on this. For folks not familiar with Colts Neck, and I believe Ocean Township, which is where Paul Caneiro's home is, can you describe those towns, rural, suburban? You know,
Sure.
what are we talking about here?
So Paul lived in Ocean Township, which is more suburban, homes closer together. They live on the west side of a highway, you know, Route 35, that has a lot of stores and businesses. So it's going to look more like suburbia. Colts Neck, completely different story. Very exclusive, rural, former rural, but giant houses on very giant plots, very far apart. There's some old parts of Colts Neck that are a little more suburban, but the area where this occurred, where Keith Caneiro lived, his house, I think it was 10 acres. I think if I'm correct, the property was on 10 acres. You know, a lot more space, and you know, the roads are actually very small in Colts Neck at parts. They're very small little 2-lane roads. So two different towns, very close to each other, but very far apart in a lot of ways in the way they look.
Crystal, are you surprised that there isn't clearer, better video? I know it's in the middle of the night, but like, it seems everyone has cameras these days. But is it just the nature of, Colts Neck and these other places where the roads aren't lit up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you were in a bigger city with a lot of street lighting, we'd be having a different conversation. But because it's so rural and the houses are so spaced out, it's not surprising that we don't have clearer video footage.
All right, our guests, Crystal and
Correct.
Kevin, are going to stay with us. Coming up next, what exactly was the nature of Paul Caneiro's relationship with his so-called best friend?
He did not commit these crimes. He did not hurt anyone. He did not harm anyone.
Tragic murder of Keith Caneiro and his entire family.
This one is the most brutal case that I've seen in my experience here.
The Mansion Murders Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8/7 Central on Court TV. 9 hours of back-to-back true crime cases every Saturday.
This is crazy.
On America's original true crime obsession. 48 hours on Court TV. Saturday starting at 3/2 Central on Court TV.
I need it. Give me the login, Paul. Give me the login, Paul. All right, an hour or two. An hour or two. An hour or two, Paul. 7:30 o'clock.
That's Keith, the night before he and his family was murdered, on the phone, caught on surveillance video inside his home, talking to his brother Paul about the insurance payments for the trust account that Paul was in charge of. Okay. Interesting witness took the stand in the trial. Giselle Restrepo's her name. There she is, and was introduced as a friend of Paul Caneiro, and prosecutors are saying that Paul paid for some of her lifestyle, and kind of awkward, right? Let's take a listen to some of her testimony, Paul Caneiro's friend.
Were there any points in time during that friendship that you and Mr. Caneiro went anywhere, like vacation-wise?
Sí. Yes.
Where do you recall going?
Fuimos a Colombia.
We went to Colombia.
How many times did you go to Colombia?
2 times we went to Colombia.
Okay. Can I ask you who paid for the trips to Colombia?
Le puedo preguntar, ¿quién pagó los viajes a Colombia?
Él pagó los viajes a Colombia.
He paid the trips to Colombia.
Was there a point in time, I believe in approximately 2018, when you got a new car?
Sí. Yes.
Do you recall what kind of car it was?
¿Se acuerda de qué tipo de carro era?
Sí.
Yes.
What kind of car was it?
¿Qué tipo de carro era?
Audi.
It was an Audi.
Do you remember approximately what the monthly payment was for the Audi?
¿Usted se acuerda de aproximadamente cuánto era el pago mensual del Audi?
No hice pagos de carro.
I did not make car payments.
Okay. Who made the car payments?
¿Quién pagaba los pagos cada mes?
Paul.
Paul.
The whole thing was kind of strange and awkward. The way this witness is my friend, is taking me on trips. We go on trips together. He pays for my car, and he's like my friend, my best friend. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. What exactly was the nature of Paul Caneiro's relationship with his best friend here? Still with me, reporter Kevin Shea and attorney Crystal Pettiford. All right, Kevin, give me the lowdown here. What is going on here? What's the nature of this relationship?
Well, I'm not really sure after listening to her testimony. Before, in pretrial motions, she was described as a woman that Paul was having an affair with. And, when they first started talking about the money in the case last week, it was a detective who testified about Paul's finances and said that he, had an Audi lease. I think it was a $53,000 Audi lease and an apartment he was paying for another woman. And they said her name, and then she testifies this week. And, you know, there was some prior reporting that identified her as a girlfriend, a paramour, you know, all sorts of words that have a romantic meaning. And when she testified, she said they were friends. And under cross-examination, she said they were best friends. And that's the way both lawyers left it. I was actually a little surprised that neither the prosecution nor the defense pressed her on their relationship.
Okay, Crystal. Jurors aren't stupid, right? I mean, especially in New Jersey, they're really smart. What is the jury going to make of this best friend and the apartment and the car and the trips out of the country?
The jury's going to determine that no matter what how they describe it, it was an inappropriate relationship. He was taking trips as a married man, expending funds outside of his household, which also gives credit to the motive behind it, financial issues that he was having, and expending all these extra money to support this woman's lifestyle.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to say. Another little surprise, she talked about the Audi, the vehicle she was driving, but she did say she paid her own rent, which kind of was counter to some of the testimony last week. And that didn't get really pushed as well. In fact, she said she supported herself. She supported herself overall, but that Paul did pay for her vehicle and some other, you know, minor expenses. So that was not what I think a lot in the media and onlookers, you know, people watching the case expected.
No, it's really strange. And it almost seems like everyone's purposely not going to a certain place. And I find jurors get frustrated with that because they're like, well, what are you guys hiding from us? We're here to find out the truth. And everyone's dancing around this. So, Crystal, bottom line is, and we have about 20 seconds left here, how damaging is this to Paul Caneiro?
I think it's very damaging. It goes directly to the motive: financial, an extramarital affair, another inappropriate relationship, the finances that he needed from his brother to support this lifestyle.
Yeah, and to me, like, financial issues, problems, stealing money, and supporting this woman potentially with all of this. It's recipe for disaster. Great job tonight, Crystal Pettiford. Great to have you on. Kevin Shea, NJ Advanced Media. Excellent, excellent reporting. Thank you so much. Paul Caneiro's life was crumbling financially. He was on disability. His brother Keith, though, was still making sure that money went to his family. But I wonder if he had any idea that money was going to his brother's so-called best friend at the same time. That reveals yet another flaw in Paul Caneiro's character, which, along with all the other evidence, may very well just sink him here. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.